2019 when we were starting out, everything in India was around SaaS, consumer tech, and consumer brands. See a lot of early stage VCs coming in who are investing maybe $500,000 or 250K.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Pioneers Pathway podcast, joined by me, Shaurya, with my co-host and good friend, Liam. How are you doing, Liam?
I'm good, thank you. How about you?
All good, Liam, all good. So today we have another guest with us today, Pushkar Singh, the co-founder of Trevor's Capital. How are you?
All good. Hi guys. All good at my end. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Pushkar, we're honored to have you on. You're a very busy man. You work in the world of finance, founder of Trevor's Capital. So, can you just give our audience a bit of a background on what Trevor's does?
We started this firm in 2018, I would say late 2018. The idea was to help Indian startups raise capital. Why we did that was because I come from a finance background, and my co-founder Vivek, he used to work with startups before. Both of us we did our MBA together, and then in 2018, I came back to India. I was just looking for something interesting to do, and then Vivek said, hey, we can start a company where I know there are a lot of smart Indian founders who are struggling to raise capital because they don't know how to pitch their company to investors, or they don't know the process, like how does typical investment banking or deal making works. So we thought, hey, it's a great idea, we can do it. And then slowly we also started investing in startups. Now we invest in early stage companies. I also do regular workshops where I help founders on fundraising, polishing their storytelling skills, helping angel investors how to think about investing, that kind of stuff.
Great. So we've seen the rapid change in the dynamic of what VCs are looking for in the past 5 years. What are your thoughts on that?
I think India is a very different country, and I'm specifically talking about the Indian perspective. I don't know about how is it in Europe or US, but especially in India, it's a very different country what it was 5, 6 years ago. Now, one welcome change that I see is you see a lot of deep tech VCs. VCs who are investing in hardware companies, space tech, AI. That wasn't there 5 years ago. 2018 or 2019 when we were starting out, everything in India was around SaaS, consumer tech, and consumer brands. Now VCs are investing in a much wider type of companies. Also, we are seeing more early stage deals where more and more founders are raising pre-seed capital, which wasn't there 5, 6 years ago. Typically, how it has worked in India is there have been very few seed stage funds or pre-seed funds. Most Indian VCs invest, I would say, Series A and beyond. Once you have already built a company, there's already some revenue, there's some product ready. But now, of late, you look at Indian VCs or the landscape, and you'll see a lot of early stage VCs coming in who are investing maybe $500,000 or 250K, smaller check sizes, but at an idea stage, or I would say at a pre-revenue stage. That's a very welcome change.
And why do you think that is?
I think first of all, of course, the ecosystem has matured. Now we have seen a lot of large startups that have come up from this country. Also, angel investing is getting more mainstream. People have realized that, hey, startups are a good asset class, and if you want to make these really astronomical 100, 200x returns, you have to invest early. You can't invest at a $20, $25 million valuation and then expect to make 100x. If you want to make that kind of return, you need to come in very early when the founder is raising its first round, like maybe it's a great idea or he's just building the product. The second reason I would think is that there are a lot of Indian founders who made a lot of money through the equity, a lot of unicorn founders. Now all of them have set up their family offices. They're investing in very early stages. Now these guys understand startups much better than ordinary folks. Why? Because they are builders. They have built startups themselves. They know what it takes to be a good founder. And you'll see a lot of these guys investing in very early stages. They, of course, want to make money, but my guess is they also want to give something back to the ecosystem.
Understood. So before, anyone invests or you personally invest into these early stage companies, what do you look for? Like, is there any particular traits you look for in the pitch deck, anything in particular?
Yeah, that's quite an interesting question. So, see, in very early stages, well, first of all, we don't invest in very early stages. We invest in probably, I would say, seed round or pre-series A, series A round. We co-invest with larger investors. At that stage, some product is ready. Most founders would have some revenue, very early stage revenue, as low as $5,000, $10,000 a month, but at least there is some customer validation. But even at this stage, or I would say if you're investing it at an even earlier stage, when there is no product, the most important criteria is the founder. Like everything is about the founder. What are his or her background, expertise, what they have done so far? Are these the right guys to make the product? Can they, like, how consistent they can be? Like, can they do it for 10, 15 years? What is their vision about? So all early stage investors, not only us, they talk to founders multiple times before investing because at that stage, the company is still not mature, right? The revenue is very little. It's just an idea, or maybe you have just built something around the idea. There's still a very high risk. So you can all talk about, and there are, of course, different indicators. For example, we look at the tech team, that the guys who are saying already want to build this product, do they have the right team to build it? How big is the market? Are they building something which is very niche? And if it is very niche, is it also growing quickly or it is already a large market? So most VCs and we also, there is a framework called 5 T's that you use to evaluate all early stage deals. It's team, team means founder. Then you have technology, you have TAM, which is total addressable market, market size. And you also have one of the very critical things that most people get wrong is timing. And you can't really predict timing, right? Then you have to go by your experience, your gut, like, hey, is this the right time to build this product? So this is the framework most guys use it. And then for some people, maybe team is more important. Some guys will say, hey, no, we want something which is more, where timing is more important. For example, all these AI investors who are investing right now in AI startups because there's an AI wave and people think AI could be the next big thing.
Sorry, can I just
Go
wanted
for
to
it, go
ask
for
a
it.
question on the back of that. So sort of thinking about you setting up the company and back at the early stages. Was there an industry that you wanted to specialize in or focus in terms of your work and your approach within sort of the startup field in India? Was there sort of an industry that you thought, hey, I want to try to tackle, I want to look into and really want to focus in? Or has it been just using the same approach, but sort of wherever the opportunity lies?
I would say we were not very, so we have always been sector agnostic, always looking at good founders from whatever sectors they came from at that time. And still now, we are a sector agnostic firm. But we always knew, or we always had a hunch that there are 3, 4 sectors we can't, like, we don't really believe a lot in them. For example, one is real estate or prop tech. We haven't invested in any real estate startups or prop tech startup because it's a very difficult market. And you know what, when I came back to India, or maybe 2018, 19, there was a lot of buzz around prop tech startups in India. You had a lot of these co-living, co-working, student housing companies coming up. And that was, or there were a lot of online brokerages. People were just trying to digitize everything around real estate. And that wave has died down. Very few of those startups did well. Now there's a new wave of prop tech companies coming, which are more like construction tech, which are simplifying construction. So we have always been very sector agnostic, just to answer your question. But of course, you work in a market, right? And you try to do deals or you try to invest in companies where the market is hot, where you think it will do well. If I were to go back 5 years ago, I don't think we were even thinking about deep tech. All we knew was SaaS, consumer brands, consumer internet, because that was the India story all about in that time. Now it has changed.
So very adaptable, and sort of trying to, yeah, bring the same approach to whatever opportunity and industry comes up.
Right, right. And we and a lot of Indian VCs, They also look at companies that that don't have a way for two things. First of all, those who are not very chasing really large corporates. For example, if you're building a product only for Fortune 500 companies or maybe for large banks, it's very difficult to get that product approved from their board, from their whatever, like client committee, or from their management. So we were not very keen on such companies that were targeting anything related to very large corporates and also
Yeah.
government. Now you'll see there are a lot of deep tech companies in India building for the government, for the space tech. Now that is also a new trend because government has also become more proactive, more focused towards startup. But 5, 6 years ago, if you're building something for government, the sales cycles were longer. It just took much more time to get your money. The contracts were not very transparent. Now that of course has changed or is changing. So we always knew that hey, if we invest in startups, so we'll take startups, we'll help them raise capital. We'll be working with guys who are building something either consumers or SMBs, small and medium businesses. That was our focus area. Not sector, but more, I would say, towards the client.
And so, Pushkar, I'm sure you get, lots of requests and you see a lot of pitches, every day. You've been doing this for years. To you, what differentiates a great pitch, like something that you'd invest in, versus an average pitch?
Let's say all things being equal, assuming they are equal quality founders building similar products. I would say a lot of investors, including us, we get swayed by decks that tell a powerful story. Now, first of all, you have like really low quality decks, which are all over the place, which are all haphazard. They don't have all the information. So no one really replies to those decks because those founders aren't even serious. Because if you're serious, you would just go on the internet and then like see dozens of samples and what a good deck looks like. Then there are people who put all the information. For example, there are 10, 15 things that go into a deck. You need to put the market size, you need to tell about the founder, technology you're building, competition, your KPIs, what you have done so far, how much money do you need, how you're going to use it, projections. So there are smart founders who put all that information, but it still doesn't tell a story. And then the best pitch decks, the best founders, they use all this information to tell a compelling story. And I think those are the pitch decks that you really find exciting. That hey, there's a powerful story, these are really smart guys, and then you want to talk to them.
Okay, so it basically seems it's your story is the main, factor that drives, the investment. So how do you say you have an excellent story? What's the best way to get it across?
See, in very early stages, when you're just raising your pre-series A round or seed round, I don't think exit story is very important. Why? Because the founder's job is to build the company. As an investor, it's my job to find an exit, whether it will happen in 3 years, 5 years. And a lot of investors ask these questions that, hey, let's say I invest in your company, how will I get an exit? And there are only 3, 4 ways you can get an exit. Either you do an IPO if you're really lucky, or you get acquired, or some other investor comes and buys out your stake. You do a secondary. There's no fourth way. These are the only ways to make a successful exit, or the company shuts down, right? So in my opinion, I always find this question about exit in very early stages not very smart. Why? Because as a founder, I don't know where this company will take me in 5 years or 10 years. What I should be focused about is building the company. And as an investor, we always want to know, hey, can you build it for 5 years? Can you build it for 10 years? What is a big vision? How big this can be? And eventually, if you tell that in a powerful story that can inspire us, it can inspire your employees, it can inspire your people you're working with, your customers, I'm sure most likely you'll build something great. And then as investors, we'll make money, we'll get an exit. You don't need to tell us that you'll make an exit in 3 years or 5 years at 25x. That never happens in real life.
Understood. So we've discussed from the VC side of it, but as a founder, how do you know whether the VC truly has your best interest at heart and whether you have, whether your missions align with each other? Because there are lots of VCs out there who truly don't have your best interest at heart, and that could be a huge problem for the founders, right?
Right, right. And it's an interesting question. whenever I speak to any founder, because I do workshops telling them how to raise capital, these are ways to raise capital. I always tell them that before you take anyone's money, spend some time with them, at least have 3, 4 conversations. Also get their feedback from their portfolio companies, the guys they have invested in. One big red flag for any investor is micromanagement. When I'm investing, let's say I'm investing in your company. Now, I believe you are a smart guy. You'll build $1 billion company, right? That's why I'm investing in. If I was so smart that I could micromanage it, I would rather build it myself. And a lot of investors don't get it. That, hey, it's one thing to give founders advice when they ask for it, or help them to connect to other people, or whatever. But it's not a great idea to micromanage them. And this is something I tell all the founders to avoid, that whenever you taking money from any investor, be it a VC firm or a family office or an HNI, always talk to people whom they have invested in before and get their feedback.
Do you think, in terms of getting that balance, that it's still important to show your interest in the company and to sort of be able to be as present as be as present and keep an active role in that as well? Do you think maybe there are certain companies or certain circumstances where it's better to stay more involved, maybe more risky ventures which align more with your experience, and maybe then you'll take a bit more of an active role in those?
See, I'm sure like everyone has a different opinion about it. I'll tell you how we do it. Whenever we invest in any startup, we always tell founders that, hey, we are not going to micromanage you. All we need is a monthly update from your side saying, hey, this is how our business did. Whatever was the revenue, if we did any important hire. Because to our investors, we always give them a monthly newsletter, monthly update letter from the firm, from the startup we have invested in. Now, as a founder, feel free to reach out to us anytime in whatever ways we can help you. We are not going to ask you that, hey, you do, or tell you that, hey, you must do this in this way, because we are not operators. That's true for certain VCs who are operators. Like, for example, if you're a successful founder and you sold your company for $100 million and then you become investor, then you know how to build a product, right? Or how to scale up a company. Now, I don't have that experience. I'm a finance guy, or I understand. I'm not even a techie. So what we tell founders is we are not operators, but we have a large network in India, also in the US. We can help you with that bit. Let's say tomorrow you want to hire some good guy and you're not able to find it. Like, we can help you in that part, or maybe connect you to larger investors whenever you're raising your next round. Or if you want some feedback on some product, some tech, will try to find a techie for you, like some good product guy who can give you a feedback. Because I don't really understand product, or my co-founder. So this is how we tell our founders, like, this is the value we bring to the table. We are very hands-off investors. We'll never tell you like, this is how you build the company, or this is how you grow, because we are backing you to build it. The whole idea of investing in you is we believe you are a smart guy and you'll really build it. And then you tell us whenever you need our help.
I just sort of have a question, related to the point of network. So one thing that has been in the news in the last few months is that Indian co-founders especially, they are not very well versed with the finance side of things. They've got a brilliant technical aspect, but in terms of the actual finances of running a business, they are lacking. So what's your sort of experience and take on that?
No, you're bang on money on that. So I'll tell you the pros and cons of, and if I can just stereotype, like a good founder, Indian founder, would usually come with very strong technical skills. If he is building a tech company, or she, they'll be most likely be engineers from good schools. They would have worked hard. They know product. They don't know how to build a product. But where most of them lack is, of course, they don't have a finance background, as you said. Most of them never studied finance. They don't know how to manage a company. They are not also great at hiring or retaining people, because most of them are young lads. They're in their 20s, early 30s. They have never really managed big teams. Also, most of them, I would say, are not great at pitching or investor communication, or how do you showcase your idea. Now, none of these things are rocket science. You can learn all of them, and all smart founders learn it over time. But when you're starting out, when you're raising your first or a second round, These are key areas that they don't really like. Most of them lack. Are you
Understood.
drinking beer, mate? I just saw the
Oh
beer
no, no,
mug.
it's a glass of water.
It's a big mug.
So, just sort of another question to do with that. I'm sure you would have heard recently that the co-founder of Zomato, he put out a statement where he's charging, I think, 20 lakhs for,
Right, right.
a new chief of staff. So, what is your thoughts on that as well?
I think it's a great marketing gimmick because like see, anyways, Dipender Goyal, he's a very smart person. He is also active on LinkedIn. He has a massive following on social media. And he keeps doing these kind of stunts, PR gimmicks, and it has worked for Zomato. So I heard like I of course I read on the internet and then I saw people bashing him, saying, "Hey, this slavery, you can't do that. This illegal. Like, why would someone pay you?" Blah blah. See, how I look at it is his incentive wasn't to save that 20 lakhs or whatever 50 lakhs, because he's a billionaire. Is a very large company for him. $50,000 is peanuts, but he wanted a good publicity. He used LinkedIn as a platform, and it went viral, so it worked for him. Like now, more and more people are talking about Zomato. It's just good brand awareness. So I think it was a good exercise. Like, no, I don't think he was being mean or like he had bad intentions.
And what would you say is the value of, a founder having a personal brand? So if he has a personal brand where he has a huge following, does that mean you're more likely to invest in him, or does that, have little bearing on that?
Good question again. I would say, see, if you're a founder who has a big personal brand, it's much easier to reach out to investors. So there are two things. How it doesn't help you in building a product, because then product building and personal brand are totally unrelated. But it helps you get a wider reach, right? So for you, it's easier to reach out to investors. Most investors would have heard about you. You would know someone who can introduce you to the investor, number one. Number two, it also helps you to attract good talent because people want to work with people who are well known, famous, have a strong personal brand. So in our cases where we invest in very early stages, honestly, we don't really get swayed by personal brand because we know that it's not critical towards building the product. But my experience has been people who have strong personal brand are also good storytellers. So whenever you talk to them, they come out more convincing, more compelling. They're good at talking. Hence, indirectly, it helps them because you can't suck at talking and be very popular on the internet or can't be a poor writer or something like that. You must be doing something good, right? And this is what I have seen in these founders, like who have a strong personal brand, are very good at presenting themselves. And whenever you're talking to them, they answer your questions very well. They have good vision. At least they're able to articulate their vision well. And this helps in fundraising and attracting talent. Maybe not in building product directly, but indirectly, yes.
Great. Liam, do you have any follow-up questions?
Yeah, sort of looking at sort of the founder and the impact that their actions have. I know on Thursday, I think it was either Thursday or Friday, the US launched an indictment against Gautam Adani,
Right,
and
right.
it made big news because of his personal business power, but also his close links to the Indian government. I just wanted to ask what you think that impact will have on outside attention to India. Obviously, India's a fast-growing country, but it still has its issues, and maybe this is highlighting sort of the issues with government cronyism, corruption, potential corruption. I stress potential corruption. What do you think? What do you think is the impact? And do you think this is a serious sort of blow to the Made in India story and Modi's sort of attempt to get investors to flood into India?
But I'm curious, did it also make news in Midwood over there, even over there?
It's made news across the world. On
Wow.
the UK headlines,
No,
it's all
UK,
about
I
it.
can imagine, but even in Spain?
In Spain, it's there. Yeah.
Wow, yeah.
Yes, I think it's he's a man of who's got a lot of power abroad
Right,
as
right.
well as in India, and has been building up a lot of power. So So yeah, I think it's just interesting to think about sort of the impact it's having,
Right,
and
right.
how businessmen have been able to control a lot of the country.
See, I think it's, of course, bad publicity for India, for Indian corporates, and for Indian businessmen at large, because he is one of the wealthiest Indian, a really powerful, rich guy. And of course, he's accused, like it's nothing is proven so far, but I think it's a serious indictment. We'll see how this pans out. And I don't know if he'll be prosecuted, not prosecuted, how the court case will go out. But of course, it raises questions about whether the Indian system is very transparent. And I don't know if it will affect India politically or if this will reduce FDI coming into India, because whatever money that startups also raise is a part of FDI. Like a lot of
Yeah.
FDI comes into startups into India. I don't think it will impact FDI unless he's proven guilty and unless the US government can show that, hey, like there have been corrupt practices in his company or he has been corrupt, whatever. If he gets, like if he's found guilty, maybe yes. But till then, it's just bad PR for the country. But it doesn't change the long-term macroeconomics of the country. So
And sort
people
of
will still be optimistic about India because it's a fast-growing country. People know that, yeah, of course, it's not as transparent as Norway or Sweden. Like still, like it doesn't rank very high on transparency index, or it's still a corrupt. Like there are a lot of people who are corrupt in this country, and these things will take time to improve.
yeah.
So unless Mr. Adani is prosecuted in 4 5 months, or how, I don't know how long the court case will last. If just a court case, of course, it's bad publicity, negative publicity for the country, but doesn't really affect the fundamentals.
Fundamentals. And it's sort of just linking back to the transparency, because we've spoken a lot about you go out to look for startups and they're pitching to you, but surely a lot of your work is pitching to the investors about how you're going to use their money, right? And I just wanted to ask whether what the kind of investors you're focusing on. Are they people from India, or do you look to international investors as well? And how do you pitch that? Because you would be the brand of made in India. You would be the Indian brand going abroad. And how do you pitch your country and the startup progress to those people?
You see, historically, venture capital has been a very high trust industry. If you look at venture capital industry, like investors have been writing $10 million checks to founders and then forgetting about it. Now, the assumption is, of course, it's a very risky business. Maybe 80% startups or 90% startups fail. That's given. But the assumption is the founder is not corrupt. The founder won't siphon off money because most of these tech founders, they come from an educated background. So they are not that kind of people whom would you associate with corrupt practices. Unfortunately, that's changed, or that has taken a hit in India, because 4 5 really large startups in India, guys who have raised hundreds of $1 million, were accused of fraudulent practices. There are a couple of really big court cases going in India. Hence, 5 years ago, if you speak to investors when they were investing in any startup, they won't do much due diligence. They would just write a check, assuming that whatever information founder has given is correct. Even after investing, they won't do regular audits because, again, as I said, the assumption was the founder is honest, transparent, non-corrupt. Now that is changing. And even when we are talking to investors, investors are asking a lot more questions around DD. See, in early stage, you can't do a lot of due diligence because there's not a lot of data. The company is hardly making any revenue. But I'm talking about people who are investing 10, 20, $50 million in India and also in US, because in US, we also had a couple of these really large scams, startup frauds. So now investors are getting more careful. They're just not writing blind checks and forgetting about it. They are saying, hey, if we give you money, we want to undergo proper due diligence. We want regular audits. We want you to appoint independent auditors. And this is something India is also undergoing. And in my opinion, that's a great sign because this brings more transparency. This brings trust back to the industry. An industry historically that has been very high trust, but in past 5 years has taken a severe beating.
And what are your thoughts on Indian startups registering in the US, for example, to gain funding from US VCs and transferring that back to India? Because
See, it
one
has,
fact, go for it.
right, no, no, go ahead.
No, so I was saying that one factor potentially could be that if you register in US is probably more likely to be a better due diligence system. Is that one of the potential reasons?
So historically, see, you would look at a lot of SaaS startups going to US from India. So the even though the entire engineering team would sit in India, the company would be registered in US. There have been two, three reasons historically. One is if you get accepted by Y Combinator, they ask you to move the company parent entity to Delaware because it's easier to raise capital over there. So a lot of Indian startups, and especially for SaaS businesses, it's much easier to raise capital in the US because you get higher valuations. Number one, the valuation multiples are higher. Also, the investors understand SaaS in early stages. The investor understands SaaS business much more than investors. Hence, it is still a very common practice for startups to move out of India, either to Singapore or to US, even to Dubai now, because fundraising is easier. The round sizes are bigger, the valuations are higher. Now, to answer the second part of your question, we're also seeing a lot of reverse flip startups coming back to India, like startups in Singapore or in the US, really large startups, billion-dollar companies coming back to India, and then paying a lot of tax for that because there's a tax cost associated with it. They are paying tens or hundreds of $1 millions of tax just to come back to India in their parent and their original country, wherever they were registered, or maybe to the Indian government. Depends upon how the structuring happens. Why are they coming back to India? Because now it's much easier to do list an startup in India. The Indian regulators, SEBI, they changed the law. Now it has become more startup friendly. The Indian market, of course, is booming. There is a lot of interest in tech companies, internet companies by Indian investors. Swiggy recently came up with the IPO. Zomato came 2 years ago. Now you're seeing a lot of these large companies coming back to India because they want to use the capital markets, Indian capital markets, where they get high valuations and they can raise a lot of money.
Understood. And now I just want to put a focus on, any challenges you've had in your experiences in establishing Trevis, and has your approach changed in the last, few years?
Yeah, of course, there are always challenges, and our approach has also changed. When we started Premise, we never thought we would become investors because, of course, I don't have, at least at that time, I didn't have any investing experience. I had consulting and banking experience. My friend, he had startup experience, working with startups more on the sales side. So when we started Premise, we thought, hey, how would we'll grow these businesses? We'll become an IB firm, like an investment banking firm, a deal advisory firm, where we'll start with smaller deals and slowly we'll graduate towards larger deals, where we'll do 100, $200 million deals and make fee income out of it. Over the time, we realized that, hey, that part is not working out really well. But then our investing business is working better. We are getting a lot of interest from young founders who want to raise half a mil, 1 mil, who are very small to help them raise capital because we won't make any fee income out of it. But these are great founders where we can invest in their companies, at least put smaller checks alongside a larger VC. So this has been our journey. We started out as deal maker, banker, and now we are more investors. This year, I also started doing these regular workshops. Why? Because I enjoy it more. I really enjoy explaining founders, telling them about fundraising, my experience, case studies, helping them polish their storyline. How do they pitch to investors? So this is again something it's like a pet project. I really enjoy doing it. So now going forward, how I look at Tremis is maybe I'll build a content business under it. That was never the plan. It just happened.
Okay, I mean, no, I completely agree because me and Liam, I don't think when we were in school we, even had even 1%, plan of starting our podcast. But content creation, it's a good way to get your name out there, isn't it? And build a network. It helps establish your credibility, isn't it?
Right, right. And see, especially I think if you enjoy it, it's a great job to do. Like you can do it forever, right? Of course, your podcast might change tomorrow. You might have a YouTube channel or you would do something else. But if you think you like talking to people, you like creating content, maybe tomorrow you can start a blog, write a book. It can go into 20 different directions. You can't predict that. But it's, of course, like you said, it's a great way to earn your cred, know more people, get more popular, build a personal brand, and also have fun. Whatever you do, if you're enjoying it, you'll do it for a longer time. Like all the best founders we have met, or I have met, in my opinion, are not there for the money. They are building it because they are, first of all, passionate about it. They think it's a big opportunity. And most of all, they enjoy it. They love building. Whatever, it could be consumer brand, it could be a tech company, consumer internet, SaaS, could be anything. They just enjoy doing their work. And to them, it doesn't feel like work. It's not like a 9 to 5 job that you switch off after 5. Like they enjoy it so much that they just work nonstop.
And sort of following on from that, what advice would you have for someone looking to become an investor or become a founder and make their mark?
So see, if you want to become a startup investor, my advice is don't invest more than 5, assuming you're not a founder and you're not an operator, you're just an angel investor. My advice to them always is never invest more than 5-10% of your liquid capital into startups. Why? Because it's a very illiquid asset. Startups and private equity, when you need the money, you won't get it. Let's say tomorrow you just need like $1 million or whatever, like you have some emergency, you need to buy a house or something. You can't sell your startup equity. Like you have to wait for a liquidity event, maybe an M&A or someone else to buy your equity, something like that. A large investor coming in, buying out your equity. So it's something that gets locked in for a longer period. Hence, it's a great idea that if you want, let's say in India, if you have $1 million or 10 crore rupees to invest with, don't invest more than 50 lakhs in startups, number one. Number two, diversify. At least try to build a portfolio over 2 years of at least 15-20 companies. Why? Because most of your bets will fail. Only maybe if you invest in 20, only 3-4 would give you return, a 10x or a 20x return. But at a portfolio level, you'll make money. And that return would be higher than stock market because you're investing in an asset which is more illiquid, which has more risk. But you won't get the return in 1 year or 2 year. Have a 6-7 year vision, invest 5-10% of your net worth, liquid net worth, and diversify.
Understood. So, Pushkar, what we tend to do now is we tend to ask a few rapid fire questions. We call this segment Investors Call. So I'm going to get you to expand on one or two here and there.
What do you call it?
Investors Call.
Okay.
So are you ready?
Yeah. I'll try.
Okay. Biggest myth about investing.
It's such a tough question. I can't answer it. Let me think. Biggest myth about investing that, yeah, startups are not lottery. You don't make 100x on every deal.
Okay. What investor you look up to and why?
What?
One investor you look up to and why?
Because we have a large network and we do a lot of founder vetting. We spend a lot of time with founders before investing.
Okay. One thing you wish you knew early in your career?
When I was starting out, I wish I had studied harder. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think see, and there's one advice I give to everyone. I wish I was more serious about work when I was in 20s and 30s. It's good to chill, but I chilled a bit too much. So I don't wish like I had studied harder or I had like cracked whatever, like I had topped the course, but yeah, work hard if you're in 20s and 30s because you can. You have more energy, you have more time.
That leads on quite nicely to the next one. The best advice you've ever received?
I think it's be consistent. Whatever you're doing, do it for a longer term. Don't do something for 3 months or 6 months or 9 months. Like whatever, first figure out something you want to do and then give it a 5-year period and then see if it's working out or not.
Okay. I know you already covered this one, but your biggest regret?
My biggest regret, can't think of anything. Maybe not investing in 2019, 2020, when valuations were lower, we could have good deals. Also, not investing in some of the smart founders because I didn't think they were good enough. We didn't have the intelligence, wisdom, experience then.
Great, Pushkar. That concludes this section. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Can you tell our listeners more about where they can find your work and how to, get in touch with you?
I think the easiest way is like my LinkedIn profile, or if you just go on our website, you'll find all the details. It's tremis.in, IN for India. Or if you send me a LinkedIn message, I can drop you on, you can send me an email. My email address is pushkar@tremis.in, but I don't expect people to remember it. It's very difficult to remember an
I'll
email
put it in the
address.
description.
Yeah, so you can put my email address and my LinkedIn profile. That works best.
Great, Pushkar. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.